And then Gabe Carbajal is going to be walking us through this, and he's the lead installer for our parent company and everything else that goes along with it. So he just brings a lot of experience, and so just please, whatever questions you may have, um, this is the time for it.
Okay.
Todd Piethman is joining us. He's our engineer, our lead engineer, again for Allied and for Zonez. So you're in good company. So
Great.
Gabe, it's all yours.
All right. So I'm what I usually do is just go over the installation guide, and I'm sharing my screen right now. So we'll just go page by page and kind of go over everything. I think best way to go through this is if you have any questions, just bring them up as we're on that topic or that page instead of waiting to the end where there's a chance you can forget about it. So if I'm going over something, just interrupt me and we'll address it and kind of go over it. If I'm going too fast, let me know.
Okay.
So this page right here, page 2 is a short, quick tool list. These are all tools that are going to be required to be able to put it together. So safety glasses, any PPE that's required on your customer's site when they're installing. 2 6-foot ladders. If you guys only have 1 6-foot, you could get away with 1, but 2 is recommended. 4-foot level and a 2-foot level. These are going to be very critical to the build. The tape measure, carpenter square, your cordless drill, you need a number 2 and a number 3 tip. Utility knives, and this is just open up the packaging, that everything comes in it. A pry bar, the screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, and putty knives. Putty knives are probably the most important thing on this list. Every installer has 2 putty knives, and anything that's a 2-inch blade up to a 6-inch blade works really well. Just make sure it's a metal putty knife. The thinner, the better, because all that we're using the putty knives for are to guide our wall panels in, because it's a finished product. You want to make sure as you're putting the vertical aluminum over the wall panels, you're not wrinkling up or damaging your exterior or your finish on it when we're putting those together. So the putty knives help out as guides, so everything slides into each other. And then wire strippers. There's very light electrical, so we're going to need to strip back some wires on these. Other than that, that's pretty much all the tools that we need. The next page is a parts list, and this is going to have, you'll have this list with you. It's going to be in your packet just like it is here. And everything that you see, all the components have a number and a letter or a number associated to it. You'll also see that written on every panel, every piece of aluminum. Everything's going to be, will either be written for your wall panels, it'll be written on the foam. So when you put it together, you won't see the writing. But for all your aluminum, it'll either be written on the inside or you'll have a sticker with that same, like your number 3 corner post, you'll have a sticker on the inside of that corner post that says number 3. So you'll be able to associate what part goes where. Okay. So what you want to do is just do a complete inventory when you first get the pallet, and it's better to do it when you have this whole pallet. You're going to receive it, I think, on Monday. It would be best if you just open up that pallet, go through all the components, make sure there's nothing damaged, broken, all your parts are there. Just do a quick inventory, and this sheet here will definitely help you with that.
So how many of these did we order? Sorry, refresh my memory.
There's just one that I know of. Yeah, just this one.
So you suggest I open and make sure everything is received. How many pallets do you think I will get for this one item?
It's just going to be one pallet. It'll be one pallet. You'll probably have 5 boxes stacked up on that pallet, and each box will have a wall section in it, or a couple of you'll have a couple of parts. It's pretty much the way it comes packaged. It's they're flat boxes. It'll be a 4x8 long box, probably about maybe 6 inches tall. And so when you open those up, you'll actually have like starting out, you may have just a window section, which is the bottom, your window, and then the top in one box.
Okay.
And all the boxes are also labeled on the exterior of the boxes. So if like the C2, you'll have those C2, C1 stickers on the box. So you'll know what's inside the box before you open, but it's just best to kind of take a glance and make sure nothing happened in shipping.
Okay. What time frame do we have to file any kind of freight or damage claim for concealed damages?
It's best if you do it within 5 days, so we could go back to our shipping company. That's what they require. So if we get notice within 5 days, we just need to file our claim within 5 days. So anytime before then would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
And the next sheet, this is pretty much going over what I just told you. Unpackage everything, take a look, make sure that there's no damage. There's nothing wrong with it. And then we're going to start the build. And the first thing you want to start out with is the base, which is number 1. And this base is already a complete unit. The way you see it right now, with the floor track already mounted to the actual base, it'll be just like that. And it's already going to have carpet on it as well. So it is a complete base. You don't have to do anything with it. The one thing you're going to do is set it where the suite is going to rest. And the first thing you want to do is put the base down, and then you're going to grab your 4-foot level and put your 4-foot level on it. Make sure that your base is level. We're also going to send out their composite door shims. So usually if the base is off, it's just one corner that's off. So once you have your level down, you'll find out which corner needs to be raised to make it level. And it's important to keep that base level, just like any building on any foundation. You want to start out with a level, solid base, and then everything else kind of builds pretty much square plumb after that. But if your base is off, you're going to fight the walls the entire time. So this is a very important part, is leveling off the base. And with those composite shims, all you're going to do is slide it into one corner until you get it level. We'll send you a pack of them. There's usually 10 per pack. You may only need 1 or 2. So once you have it shimmed up and the base is level, you want to make sure that those are completely hidden, where if you can't tuck them all the way under the base so you don't see it, or it's not a trip hazard when you're walking up towards the unit, then go ahead and, if you score it with your knife, those snap right off. So just score it flush with the base and then snap them off so they're tucked underneath the base. And then we're going to start with our walls. And the first component you're going to start with is that corner post, number 3. And if you look at this, there's a shallow side and a deep side to this corner post. So you want to make sure you follow the drawing, where your deep side is going to go on your full B2 panel wall, and your shallow side is going to go on your window back wall. So the number 3 is going to slide right into that into that mitered floor track. Okay. Everything fits right inside the floor track. So go ahead and slide that in, and it fits in pretty tight. So once you slide it into the floor track, it'll pretty much hold up itself. You don't have to continue holding it. But then we're going to move to the back wall now that our corner post is in, and you're going to put in that C1 panel. The C1 panel goes in the floor track, and then it's going to slide into that corner post, which goes in 3/4 of an inch, and you'll feel the panel kind of slide in and lock in. And this is where we're going to use our putty knives So if you put a putty knife on each side of the panel, on the interior and exterior, as you're sliding that panel in, it'll just slide right in like butter. Like I said, they really help out as guides.
Okay.
And then once this your C1 panel's on, the next piece you're going to put in is this window. And then the way the windows come packaged, you'll see a piece of shrink wrap that goes around the center of the window. You never want to lift the windows from the two long sides. You're always going to lift it from or carry it from the bottom and the top side of the window. Otherwise, the long sides, the frame wants to pull apart from the glass, and there's a seal that holds that glass in. And if you pull it too far, the seal goes behind the glass, and then you got to pull the seal off and redo the seal on the glass. So best practice, the way it comes packaged with that shrink wrap around the center of the window, leave that on until you're ready to set the window onto that C1 panel. And there's a sheet of paper that's taped to that shrink wrap that explains just that. It says do not remove until ready to install.
Okay.
So just leave that piece of shrink wrap on until you're ready to, you got the window pretty much in place, and all you have to do is lift it up and set it on the C1 panel. That's when you would cut that shrink wrap off and then go ahead and put it in place.
Okay.
Best way to set the windows, they're a little bit heavy, so it's going to take two guys for sure. One guy lifting on each side. But if you rock this, if you could see my cursor,
Yep, I do.
this corner right here, you're going to set it on that C1 panel first. So this side is going to be up in the air. You're going to have it tilted back a little bit. So once you set that corner, now you can start letting gravity pull the rest of the window onto that C1 panel, and it's going to slide right into that corner post. Again, if you need some assistance, or if it's you want help with guidance, use the putty knives. It'll slide right in place. So we're always rocking the windows in. So you're always doing that far corner, set that corner first, and then just go ahead and rock the window in place. And we're going to do that same thing with our full panels too. But the smaller panels, those are really easy. So now that we have the base on and the window set into that corner post, the next piece we're going to put on is that C2. And the C2 panel is very easy, extremely light, and it fits right on top of that window frame. So just go ahead and set that in place and let it drop in. Now that the three-piece window is done on the back, we're going to put this B2 panel on. And the B2, just like I said, we're gonna set this corner, or this bottom corner, into the floor track on this bottom corner, and then just rock it in place. Use your putty knives on this corner to guide it into that deep side of the H, or deep side of the corner, and it's going to slide all the way in. Now that that's in, we created that L. It's going to hold up itself. It's pretty strong at this point. So now we could continue with the rest of the build, and we're going to continue on that back wall, which this is our raceway. And as you see, it has a box at the top. It's going to have two USB plugs, and those plugs are going to be for our fans. So this fan right here, it's going to have a hole at the top of this panel right up here, and it'll have a USB cord coming out of it. That's going to plug into this when we get to that point. And then you have two outlets, one towards the bottom, and one about 43 inches up. What you don't see on this is there's a three-prong plug on the back side, on the exterior side of this. And that three-prong plug is where we're going to plug our extension cord and provide power to this unit. So on the raceway, again, it fits in the floor track. And then once you get it into the floor track, just slide it in place over the windows. And it'll go over your base panel, your kick panel, the window panel, and then also your header. It's going to slide in that 3/4 of an inch. And then once you get that in place, the next piece you're going to do is the next three-piece window, and we're going to set it just like we did the first one. So go ahead and put your kick in, rock your window in place, and then put your header on. The next piece we're going to do is the other side of the wall, and that's our corner post, again, number 3. Make sure we're looking to see how it shows on the diagram, and that's how it's going to be installed. So put your corner post, slide your corner post in place over that the second 3-piece window that we just installed. Once that's in place, go ahead and put your D2 panel in. Again, this lower portion right here, you're going to put into the mitered corner, and then rock your panel in place that's going to slide into that deep side of the corner post. The next piece we're going to put on is our top cap, and this is just to hold everything together. So as we put in more and more components, it's going to get a lot more rigid, and that's what this 4C top cap is going to do. It's already mitered, and if you look on this, you could actually see right here, it's already pre-drilled where your self-tapping screws are going to go. You also have 2 pre-drilled holes on each mitered corner, but we're not going to put any screws in yet. I don't put the screws in until I have the whole unit, all the walls up on the unit, and then I'll apply screws. And the reason why I do that is if I started putting in screws now, it lose my ability to adjust if my walls are kind of if they're not plumb. So if they're bowed out or toed in a little bit and I have screws in it, I just locked everything in that position. So I leave the screws out, we just put everything on, and then once I have all my walls up, I'll go ahead and fasten all my screws and lock it in place. So slide that top cap on, again, no screws. The next section we're going to do is move on to the front and complete our front wall section. This is another 3-piece window, but it's going to be a lot smaller than our back walls. So slide your corner post in. Again, look at the drawings, and now we're reversing. So deep side is, again, going to go on your B2 panel. Slide that in place, and then do your 3-piece window. This number 12 piece, this is what we call an H-post. And if we didn't have any electrical, we would use the H-post, and it looks just like an H-post. It looks like an H when you look at it. So just like our back wall, this was our raceway that has all our electrical in it. And I'm not sure if I went over that or not, but all these outlets, everything in the raceway is already pre-wired. So there isn't any wiring that needs to happen in this unit. It's already completely done at the factory for you. So after we get our 3-piece window, the smaller window on the front side in, you're going to slide that H-post in place. And then we're going to move on to the opposite side and do that same exact thing. So corner post, and then the 3-piece window. The next thing we're going to do is put our top cap on both our 2 short walls. Again, these are already pre-mitered, so they only go in one direction, and everything, again, should be labeled. So you'll see that 4B, it'll have a 4B sticker, usually on the inside of this underneath, and the same thing with the 4D. So go ahead and put those in place, and then we're going to move on to installing the door. On this door panel, when you receive it in the packaging, it's going to have the storefront door already on it, and this is a full glass door, and that door is extremely heavy. It's probably about 3/4 the weight of this unit, just the door alone. So it's best if when you get to the box that the door is in, if you leave that door laying down and you just leave the door panel with the door in it laying down, just open the door to 90 degrees. And the hinges that you see, these three hinges, they're all slide hinges. So if you open the door while it's laying in the box to 90 degrees, just slide that door up towards the header, and the door will come right off. It's take the door off and set it in a safe location, and then let's install the panel without the door. It'll make everybody's life 10 times easier, and you won't have smashed fingers while you're trying to set this door panel in place, and that door is trying to swing closed with your fingers in the jamb. So if you remove the door, then this door panel's maybe 5 pounds. Doesn't weigh much at all at that point, and it's a lot easier to maneuver and get it to slide into the floor track. So with the door off, best way to do this is to put this H post onto the door panel, set it onto the door panel, and then slide it up the door panel. You're going to slide it up 3 inches from the bottom of the panel, and that's going to give us the clearance that we need to clear the floor track right here. Then you could put this side on into the deep side of the H, and if you could lift that door panel up in the air, and instead of trying to get it so you just clear the floor panel and then set it in place, if you could lift it up as high as you could go, the further up you go, the more clearance you're going to have, because these walls will have a lot more give to bow out away from the door panel, so you could slide it, get it in place. Once you have the 2 H's in place, then go ahead and just slide the door panel, slide it down and right into the floor track. Again, use your putty knives when you're doing that. One of the things that you want to do first is this door frame is a timely frame. So it has that the trim that goes around that just clips on. You want to unclip it, just stick in your putty knife and pull it back towards you, and that trim snaps right off. If you snap 3 of those clips, or just snap the trim off of the clips, 3 of the clips going up the frames on both sides on your interior and exterior, you're going to need that, because that's going to slide into the floor track. So with your trim snapped on, it won't allow you to slide it onto the floor track. You're going to hit that trim before it could slide in place. So make sure that you snap your trim off on interior and exterior, both sides of the door frames. So your strike side and your hinge side, snap that trim off, and then set your once your door panel set in place, the frame is actually going to go inside the floor track. Is that understood? Is that pretty clear?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. And then now that our door is in place, the last piece we're going to put on, the last header piece that we're going to put on, is for our front wall. So go ahead and set that in place. Now we're going to start applying screws once you get that corner post, the top cap on the front in place. And this is where you're going to need a person on the inside with the 6-foot ladder and a person on the outside with the level. So the person on the outside, what they're looking for, and you always start on the front, you want to make sure your miters are nice and tight on the front side. So start on either corner, it doesn't matter, but as long as it's the front, because that's what the customer is going to walk up to, and for whatever reason, that's the first thing that their eyes are attracted to is the gap on that corner post or on that top cap in that miter. So you want to make sure that's nice and tight. The person on the outside is going to make sure that miter is nice and tight, and if they need to shift the walls or push them over to get that miter tight, they're going to hold it in place, while the person on the inside of the unit on that 6-foot ladder is going to go ahead and start applying the self-tapping screws in the pre-drilled holes that are in this corner. So you'll have 4 screws per corner, and once that miter's tight, he's going to apply those self-tapping screws, and that should hold it in place. Then move over to the other side of the corner and do the same exact thing. Once you have your fronts locked in, the miters are nice and tight, then move to your back and do the same thing. So once that's all done, and we're just putting screws at the top at this point. So all your pre-drilled holes that are going to be in your top cap, go ahead and apply all those screws after you get your corners done. So you'll have some in the H post on your two H post on the front wall, and then your raceway back here. You'll have 2 screws that go into that lock that raceway in. Now that that's done, we're going to start with the ceiling. And again, this is a parts list for everything that's going to be that you need to make up that ceiling. So just do an inventory again. Everything should be numbered and labeled, just like you see here.
I think we've now assembled this, so you'll see that all these parts should already be assembled. It was in, I think they put it inside on top of the carpet floor track, so this should already be built as one piece.
Oh, okay.
I think that's when manufacturing started doing so. They wouldn't miss any of the pieces or screws in this, so this frame should already be built.
And so
Correct.
what Todd is saying is all these cross tees, all your cross tees and your mains are already going to be assembled. So those will already be screwed together. You'll get this already as one whole grid unit that it'll just take 2 guys to lift up over the top cap and set in place. The only thing you're going to have to do is put in your L angle. So once the L angle is in place, your grid will just sit right in. And that should be right in here in this section here where we're going to do the L angle. These are all pre-mitered again, and you're just going to have to screw those. Those go 90 inches from the inside of the floor up is where you're going to place your L angles. Again, with your 2-foot level, if you just put that in place, you could use the 2-foot and the 4-foot level. Screw one side, just make small pencil marks. If you do them at 91, that's going to be the top of your wall angle, because the wall angle is 2 inch, 2 inch by 1 inch. So if you do it at 91, you make your mark at 91. When you set the top side of, or the high side of that 1 inch side, right on that mark, that's going to put your grid right at 90. So we just make small pencil marks on your corners and then go ahead and set your L angle, put your level on and make sure you're leveled off. And where you're going to place your screws is on your corners. You have about that three-quarters of an inch to grab into the corner post on the inside. And then on your raceways, you're going to go on 3/4. You have 3/4 on each side. What you don't want to do is put a screw down the center, because that's where all your electrical is. So if you have that 3/4 on either side, just make sure you don't put any screws into that cover plate of the raceway. Everywhere else is fine. So screw your wall angle in place, make sure it's level. And then the next piece we're going to put on is these 2 brackets. And these are it's going to stabilize and keep the unit closed. So when that heavy door swings out, it's not pulling that front wall out, bowing that front wall out. These will lock it in place. But best practice, I set these in place, and although they're pre-drilled and already marked where these 4 screws on each end are going to go, I don't put the screws in until after I get the grid in place. I leave them loose, because what you don't see is there's through bolts that go through these. You'll have 2 on each side, and those are going to screw down into your grid ceiling and your mains. And if those holes are off just a little bit, it makes it really hard to tweak your grid. So I just leave these loose, get my through bolts in, tie the grid in, and then come back and apply these 4 screws. So once that's in place, the next thing we're going to do is wire our electrical, and this is where the basic wiring comes in. So that box that's on the back side, that has the USB ports on the front, you're going to unscrew that cover, and the USB ports, just leave them all wired in, let it hang down, and you'll see 3 wires. It's going to look just like this. So you'll have your black, white, and green wire coming out of that raceway. You're going to strip those back 1/4 inch. And then with the, make sure you knock out one of the top holes, your 1/2 inch knockout. Just punch those out, pull that little ring out. And once that's in place, your BX connector, you're going to have the BX already connected onto this metal flex conduit on one side. So just go ahead and snap that in place. Those are the snap-in types. So just push it in really hard, snaps in, you'll feel it click, you'll hear it click and it locks in. Strip back those wires, and again, it's going to be red, black, green wires. Strip those back 1/4 inch. Now you're going to tie your whites to white, black to black, green to green, and we provide Wagos, which are quick connects, so it looks just like this here. When you push those in, you could actually see on this clear image up here, you could see that copper come through, so you know that you have a tight connection and it's a good connection. So just get your 2 whites, clip those both into the quick connect Wagos, and then you're going to do the same for your greens and your blacks. Once those are all wired, just go ahead and push in your wires, shove them back into the box. And everything with with the USB ports is already wired for you. So when we took the cover off, we just moved the wires out of the way to expose these wires coming in that are going to be coming out from the raceway. We wire those in, push them back in, and then just put your cover back on. And it's going to look like this when you're all done. So you have your MC cable that's snapped in. All our connections are behind these USB plugs. And now that that's done and our electrical's done, you could grab those 2 USB plugs. They look just like this. They're gonna for the fans. They're gonna plug right into that cover plate. The next thing, this is going to go over the grid, but again, this was before we were just sending all the components and you would put it together in the field, but now the grid is all going to be one piece. So since we have our cross brackets.
Sorry, can I back up to the electrical 1 second? Can you go back
Yeah,
one
sure.
quick slide? So now I get all that. So is the other side, is that plug into a floor regular NEMA plug? Do we have to have somebody hardwired into the building somewhere? Where does that, where's the power source?
The power source that's going to be, let me go back a couple of, where I was explaining our raceways.
Yeah.
It's going to have a 3-prong plug on the back of that raceway. And you're just going to plug in the extension cord into that. That's going to provide the power to everything else.
Well, there's also an option to hardwire it.
Yeah, you could hardwire into the top of that 4S box if you wanted to go up from the ceiling up.
Now is the oh geez, what was my question? Wait, it'll come to me. All right, so you have your raceway, your outlet. Okay, sorry, I had a question. I can't remember what it was exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys supply the extension cord, or do I have to bring one?
No, we supply it. So you're going to have.
Okay.
Going back on that was part of one of the things on that first list on page 3. The extension cord is provided in there, and it's going to be a 10-foot, that number 11. You'll have a 10-foot black extension cord.
Gotcha. All right, great. That works. Thank you.
So our grid, this is where I was talking about those through bolts that are going to come through. You have these 14-4 bolts that are going to go through that top piece that we're going to use kind of as seismic struts. There's already a pre-drilled hole on the inside of this piece up here that you can't see, but the bolt slides right through and threads into the top of those crosses that bolt your grid together. And this is where I was saying we don't fasten these screws yet until I get this bolt slid in and in place, because if the pre-drilled holes are off just a little bit, you don't have any give. That bolt's going to come in at an angle and you're not going to be able to thread it into that cross. So I put the bolt in and thread it in place. And then wherever these line up, they line up. And then I go ahead and apply the 4 screws on each side of those cross brackets after I have the bolts in. So it'll look like this when it's done. We're going to kind of skip a lot of this section because the grid is already put together for you. But if you need to make any adjustments, there's 2 screws that screw into the top of your cross tees. And those just, they'll fasten right down. They're 1/4-20 screws, 3/4 inch, and they'll just, that's what holds all the grid together. But this will already be assembled. It'll look pretty much like this. It's already going to come assembled just like that. So you want to drop that in place and then put your through bolts on. And that's pretty much it. Your grid's done for you. The next piece you're going to put in is the light. Set the light right in that center tile, and that's where we already wired that metal flex conduit into that 4S box. The other side of that whip is going to go right into this light, into this box that's on top of that flat panel LED light. And on that light, it's going to have a knockout. It has 2 knockout pins on both sides of that light. So just pick one of them. You're going to knock out that ring and then snap your other side of that metal flex conduit right into there. Now on these are push pin connectors. So on the light itself, again, you're going to feed the wire through, strip it back 1/4 inch to expose the copper. And then on this light, you see it has ACL, and there's 2 of them. That ACL is your load, and that's where your power is going to go in. So it's always going to be your black wire goes with the L. And then you have 2 ACNs, which is your neutral. So your white is always going to go, it doesn't matter which end it goes to, as long as the white goes to your neutral side. And the same thing with your power. Doesn't matter which one you pick, as long as the black goes to your either one of the L's. And the way that those push in is if these white push pins right here, if you just hold that down with your finger, you could shove the wire right in and you'll actually feel it clip in. And then just to make sure that your connection is good, pull back on that wire and make sure it doesn't pull right back out. If it clips in, it's going to lock in place. So put your black wire with your L, your white wire is going to go with your N, the neutral, and then your green wire, it has a green ground pigtail right here that's already supplied and mounted inside that box. So you just want to get your green wire, strip it back that 1/4 inch. And then inside this compartment, there's going to be a twist, a wire nut. That orange wire nut will be provided for you inside that box. So just put your 2 greens together and twist that wire nut on, and then put your covered plate back on, and the light is wired and done. After that's done, you're going to go ahead and apply all your ceiling tiles. So if these are if it's the sound dampening tiles, these are already going to be pre-cut for you, and they're all labeled just like they are in here. So it'll say T1 or T2, T1, T4s, everything's already cut. So all you have to do is drop them in place. The last portion that we're going to put back on is that door. So go ahead and slide it. And again, this is going to take 2 guys. This door is probably about 100 pounds, 125 pounds. So 2 guys go back to your door that you stored away safe, bring it back over, and you're going to slide it onto those slide hinges. And then once you have the door in place, go ahead and with 1 person on the inside with the self-tapping screws, the person on the outside is going to close the door. And what the person on the outside is looking for is to make sure that the reveal on the door is consistent. So you're usually going to have about an 1/8 inch gap, 8 to 3/16 gap consistent from the hinge side all the way to the strike side. And if that is decreasing, so it usually if it drops down on your strike side, what you want to do is adjust the door panel, and that's where if you have your pry bar, you could wedge that side up to get your reveal right. And then once it's wedged in place, you're going to apply the screws into your floor track and hold that door in place where you need it. But you also want to check your strike side. Or there isn't a strike on this door, so it'd be your door handle side or your latch side, which is this here, and make sure that that gap is consistent on that side as well. Once it's consistent and the person on the outside of the door likes the reveal all the way around the door, the person on the inside is going to apply those screws. You're going to use those self-tapping screws, and with the trim pulled away, it's going to go into the floor track and into the door frame and lock that frame in place. And you're going to do that on both sides, interior and exterior, to lock it into the floor track. And then when you snap that trim back on to the clips of the timely frame, it'll cover up those screws so you don't see them at all. But that's going to keep your door, especially with the weight of this door, from pulling the frame out of the floor track and having that door panel wanting to move all over the place. So very critical to make sure you get those screws through the floor track and into the door frame to lock that frame in place. And then this shows you how it's timely instructions on how everything goes together. And this is what the clips look like. So they just look like bow tie clips, and that clips that trim in place. So to put them on, just put your putty knife in between that clip, or to take them off, put it over near the clip and pull your putty knife towards you, and it'll snap right off. You'll feel it pop off, and then to put it back, you could just force it back on with your hand. You just don't want to hit it real hard, especially in the center. Otherwise, it'll lose shape and kind of it'll dent. So once the door's on, the next piece we're going to put on is the door closer, and everything's pre-drilled where it's going to mount onto the door. So the door closer itself mounts on these 4 holes, and this is where you're going to need the number 3 tip, because these are going to be number 3 self-tapping screws that go right in here. And what you want to look for when you're mounting the door closer, there is a way to install it wrong or backwards, where the door, if you install it backwards, the closer is going to want to pull the door in, or it's going to want to open in instead of out. So you'll pretty much be locked into the unit if you install it backwards. So best thing to look for is there's 2 adjustment screws on the door closer. Make sure that those adjustment screws are facing the handle side. So you're going to have them on this side right here. And those screws are for your door sweep is number 1, and number 2 is your door latch, and that's how tight the door torques into that last 5 inches when it seals. It's already preset, and for the most part, they're usually you don't need to make any adjustments. But you're also going to get the box with a closer in there, and it'll explain what screw does what, so you don't have to remember, and then which way to turn it to increase or decrease the speed and the torque. So if you do need to make any adjustments, you could refer back to the instructions on that, and that's where some of them have an Allen wrench that's provided, and some of them are you need that screwdriver with a flat blade on it to make the adjustments. So once your closer is mounted, the next thing you're going to mount is your arm, or this. There's a triangle bracket that mounts to the inside of that frame. Again, those are already pre-drilled, so just go ahead and for the most part, these screws are usually already in the bottom side of the frame. So you'll have to back those screws out, put that bracket in, and then just reapply the screws. And then get your two arms, the arm off of the closer and the arm that goes to this triangle, and put those two together with the door closed, and it should be set for you. Again, open your door 90 degrees and just let the door close on its own and see how fast it's closing, or make sure that it seals all the way up. It closes all the way tight to the door seal. So once it's closed and everything's good, the last thing that we're going to do is apply all the self-tapping screws on the floor track all the way around the perimeter. That was the last piece that we haven't done yet. And those are all pre-drilled. So you're right where the pre-drilled holes are, you're going to apply self-tapping screws. And now the unit is built. We're going to go ahead and plug it in, so that with the extension cord provided, you're going to plug it right into the backside of that raceway. And then the lights should kick on, your outlets should work. The lights are going to work off of a motion. So they'll kick on. It may take anywhere from 15 seconds up to a minute. So that motion is, it has a chip in it, so it'll start programming. And once it detects motion, it'll kick on. For the first time, like I said, it may take anywhere from 15 seconds up to a minute, or it may just kick on immediately. So once the light kicks on, it's also wired to your fans are running on that motion as well. So the lights and the fans will kick on every single time it senses motion. Your outlets should be constantly hot. So just put a self-tester and make sure outlets are good. The fans are going to be really, really quiet. So the way to test the fans is if you get a sheet of this paper, just like the instructions that we have here, just grab that piece of paper and stick it up to the fan, and you should feel it suck up to the fan. One's going to suck up to the fan, the other one's going to blow out towards the fan, and you can feel it with that sheet of paper to know that the fans are working. Then you just want to wipe all the windows down, make sure it's all clean. You are going to have some metal shavings that come from the self-tapping screws when you put your screws in the corners. So just make sure it's all cleaned up, and then you're going to do a walkthrough with the customer. Make sure the customer is all good with it, and the unit is built. This whole build may take you, this first time around, it may be up to an hour. But after your guys install one of them, they'll knock this down to about 30 minutes. You go through them extremely quick. And then on the bottom, on this very last sheet, you have the 1-800 number. So if you need any assistance, if there's anything that the installers run into or have questions on while they're doing the install, they could go ahead and call this number, and it's going to go out to our call center, which will reach out. They'll reach out to either myself or Todd or one of our engineers. You'll get a hold of somebody that will be able to walk you through this. And all of us have well-versed knowledge in installing these. So I'm going to go back. Now that that's all done, there's a quality control checklist that you want to go through, and all that quality control checklist, I think it was sent out to you on the install calendar or the invite. There was 4 attachments. One of them is that quality control checklist. So when you get that checklist, there's 3 pre-construction boxes to check off, and that's kind of what we went over. Make sure your package isn't damaged, all your components are there, everything looks good, and then if there is any damage, you want to mark it onto that checklist, but you also want to get in contact with Gloria and notify her immediately so we could get you replacement parts as soon as possible, and it's not impacting your customer schedule. And then there's about 10 post-construction checklists. on there, and that's everything that we went over. So you want to make sure the door reveal's good, your door closer's working fine, outlets are working, your lights kicked on, the motion sensor's working, you have power to the building's clean, and everything's put together correctly. You want to make sure your walls are plumb. So it just goes through all those and just go through and check all those. And at the very bottom, there's a place where the installer signs, and then there's also a place where the customer signs. So that would be your customer that signs the bottom once they're happy with the unit, everything looks good, everything's functioning, they would sign that. And then that goes back to Gloria, which is our PM. And that'll initiate the warranty on your suite. So it's important to get that back. Just like I said, that once we receive that back, we put it into our file, and Gloria initiates the warranty for the suite, saying it was complete, it's built, it was built by somebody that went through training, and everything should be good.